The ability to speak might not make you intelligent, but we're going to try to prove otherwise. This is the Clashing Sabers podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon, and I'm here with my co host. He is the man whose ego's gotten so big he gets 2 spots on the Jedi Council. It's
Davor.
Davor. It's funny because you're so humble, that you'd never accept 2 spots on a Jedi Council, let alone get them. No, Davor, thank you so much for joining tonight. Excited to have you here. Excited to talk some more Star Wars. Of course, we do this every other week on the network, and we put out usually a podcast a week if you are just joining us. So make sure you are subscribed to the Clashing Sabers Network so that you can get all of our good stuff. But excited for the conversation that we're going to have tonight. We're talking about Star Wars Visions Presents The Ninth Jedi, which is going to be a really fun conversation using our best and butts format. So it's gonna be a ride. I would think we both have lots to say about the Ninth Jedi. So really looking forward to talking about that.
Yeah, me too. It was good. There's a lot to talk about.
There's plenty to talk about. So
yeah,
we'll try to keep it contained in a timely manner for you guys. But no promises, because this is Clashing Sabers after all. If you are listening for the first time, of course, we don't just have our podcast. We have so much more that we do here. We, of course, have our written work over at clashingsabers.net. And while you're over there, you can check out our Patreon by just clicking on the menu button there, and you'll find all the links to patreon.com/clashingsabers to support our nonprofit, put Star Wars books into classrooms across the country. So that's what we're making a really big push right now to get some teachers to nominate. So you can find our nominated teacher page over there on the website because school's starting up. And I don't know about where you guys live, but I live in a state where they are trying to take our books away. So as they take books away from kids, we're going to give books to kids for free. So if you want to do that, if you want to be a part of that, right now, really, like we've got donations. We just need places to send books. So whether you have a public school or rural school, urban school, doesn't matter. Whether the teacher is a Star Wars fan or not doesn't matter. I think that's a really big important thing for people to realize. Like, they're going to be excited about getting good books into these kids' hands, regardless of whether they're a Star Wars fan or not. So Star Wars fandom not required to get free books from us. So go over, nominate a teacher while you're listening to the episode, and let's send them some free books. Should be good. Do it. Palpatine's voice is one of my favorites to do. Palpatine and Jar Jar. Just like 2 different sides of the dichotomy. Yeah. Davor, man, we've got some stuff popping off in the Star Wars fandom. So let's talk about what you've been Star Warsing lately, and we'll get into some things and events that are happening right now as we record. But just in your personal fandom, what have you been Star Warsing?
Yeah. Well, other than the Ninth Jedi, obviously, the topic of our conversation tonight, we talked about this a little bit over on Don't Burn the Sacred Text, where we reviewed Crystal Crown. Go listen to that if you haven't. I recently finished reading Eyes Like Stars.
Mm-hmm.
And enjoyed that. Had some. It didn't, as I talked a little bit about there in our intro, it didn't hit for me quite to the degree that some of the other Star Wars romances, or like Star Wars romance books that have romance in them have. But it is still definitely worth reading, especially if you are interested in that side of Star Wars. But then also it also just tells a good Star Wars story.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm still working my way through Legacy and really, really enjoying that. And then Eyes Like Stars is next, so that'll be a good read. Legacy is quite the ride, man. It's really good.
Yeah. That's a Brandon book. It really is.
It's very much a Brandon book. It's very much like here's some weird Force stuff, and you want some water in a cave? Here you go.
Yeah, it's a Brandon book.
It's a Brandon book, but hey, that's not a bad thing all the time.
No, I don't say that as an insult.
No, I didn't take it as such. So yeah, that's been my big Star Wars thing lately. And then I've gotten into first, I really loved Spider-Man Brand New Day. Went and saw that.
Yeah, me too. That was really good.
and made so many connections to like Star Wars themes and ideas, right? And so then I started when I watched Avatar Aang, the new Avatar movie. I was kind of in that mindset already and made a ton of connections there of just different Star Wars things. So I actually put an article up on the website. If you guys are interested in reading that, you can go over and check that out. But just I love getting to make connections to Star Wars with things that are not Star Wars. When it just like hits you and you're like, oh my God, this is so like kind of the thesis that I came to on things was the Avatar Aang movie, the new one that's out. You guys can watch it on, I think it's on Paramount Plus. Is very much a like sequel trilogy story in terms of like what do you do when the hero's journey is over kind of thing. So you've seen it, you've watched it, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. And it just really connected with me there. So like other than that, has there been like anything you watched recently that kind of like hit you as like, man, this kind of fits as a Star Wars story, whether it's books, shows, comics, TV, and or, you know, movies, anything?
Wow. I mean, you gave two good examples of recent media that have come out. I'm trying to think. Where have I watched or read something where I was like, man, I really feel the Star Wars or that. Man, to be honest, I don't think so. I mean, other than the two that you just mentioned, which definitely have Star Wars,
which are like
themes.
two of the biggest pieces of media out there right now. So like I kind of stole both, because like Spider-Man and what it does with like identity and what it means to be a hero and the sacrifices you make and things like that was really, really powerful. So just good stuff. If you guys are Star Wars fans and you don't look at the adjacent stuff sometimes, of course we talk about it on here sometimes and have articles over on the website and whatnot, but like give yourself, you know, that kind of as like a task next time you go to the movies or something. Like just be like, how can I connect this to Star Wars? It's a fun little game to play with yourself.
It is, definitely.
You know, so well, with that in mind, let's go ahead and talk about the other big Star Wars thing that I know we're all kind of Star Warsing, and when this comes out, this will be over, but it's always fun to listen back to like what people thought was going to happen. We've got D23 happening this weekend. And we are expecting to get some Star Wars Starfighter stuff, maybe some Ahsoka Season 2 stuff. We've gotten, at the time of recording, the new costumes that are out on display. Out of the blue, Star Wars Eclipse has made a return.
Wait, really?
Yeah. No, they had the trailer playing at one of the booths.
Man.
The one
somehow
that
Eclipse returned.
Somehow Eclipse returns. I don't understand it. So I guess just, you know, what are you most excited about that's gonna hopefully come out of D23? What are you most looking forward to?
Yeah, let's see. I think the likeliest is that we will get some update on Ahsoka. Like, I'm trying to think if I think we're gonna get the whole 9 yards as far as like poster, trailer, date, everything. I guess it really depends on when it's coming out, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I feel at a minimum we're gonna get a date.
Yeah, I feel like we'll get a teaser.
Yeah, we could. We could get like some kind of like minute-long thing.
Yeah, like I mean, even less than that too. Yeah, just like a flash of a couple scenes and then like Ahsoka coming. January 2027, or like they like to do, Ahsoka trailer coming this date or whatever.
The trailer for the trailer.
The trailer for the trailer. That's what we're gonna get. Yeah, that would be interesting. So Ahsoka is what you're most looking forward to there. Are you where are you at on Starfighter right now, like excitement level wise?
Yeah, so I mean, I mostly mentioned Ahsoka because I feel like of the things that are coming out in the next year, let's say, I think in this venue, I think it's likelier that we'll get more concrete things on Ahsoka than Starfighter. Starfighter is still a little bit ways away. Although, again, maybe they do. That could be another one where maybe we get like some 15-second like What do
Yeah.
they call? I don't even know what they call that. It's like something. It's like even shorter than like a teaser.
Yeah, it's like a spot or something
Yeah, or
like that.
spot or something like that. Like that's possible. But in terms of my feelings about Starfighter, I think I'm cautiously optimistic about Starfighter because you have the sort of I mean, I think you have a couple things going for it. Like one
Mhm.
is you have the element of like it's a brand new like it's a totally like brand new sort of self-contained thing in the sense of like it's not the first of a trilogy. It's not the movie continuation of a TV show or
Yeah.
anything like that. So it's its own little pocket thing, and I think that's good for it. I do. I mean, we've already had our Mando and Grogu conversation. I'm sure we'll get back to it at the end of the year. When we kind of look back at 2026. I do think part of what hurt it is probably that sort of like we're going from TV and then we're launching it into a movie. So I think there's that element. I do think that like I think the Sean Levy element is in its favor. Like there is
Yeah.
there is the knock on him, and I think it's the valid knock of like he doesn't have the like the sort of vision like there's not like a Sean Levy movie, right? The way that there's like a
Yeah.
Chris Nolan movie, right, or something like that. Like he doesn't have that unique sort of like style or anything like that, but he is a hit maker. And you had Deadpool and Wolverine that made a lot of money. You have what is it? Free Guy, I think it was. Yeah, I think his
Yeah.
movie with Ryan Reynolds, like that did very well. So he's good as a sort of commercial director, and so I think that's a good thing going for it. I think
For sure.
the Ryan Gosling factor is a good thing because he is a bona fide movie star. Project Hail Mary just made buckets of money. There are a lot of people who might go to this movie just because Ryan Gosling is in it. So not
Yeah.
even for the Star Wars of it all. So I think all of that is working in its favor. And I mean, in some of again, we can do this as a future retrospective. I think after this year, it kind of has to do well. For the
Yeah.
future of Star Wars movies, it kind of has to be a banger for reasons. So yeah, I think it's got things going in its favor, and so I am crossing my fingers, hopeful that it is going to land.
Yeah, I think it has so much going for it that I think it'll do numbers if it's a halfway decent movie.
Yeah.
I don't I I think we are so used to Star Wars movies needing to like change the galaxy,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this has a chance to do that. Like they've got the room to play because it's after episode 9, but like it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
It could just be a solid like good story that hits on good themes, does some interesting things with the characters, stuff like that. Like we don't need this whole, the galaxy is on fire thing all the time, but it has to do whatever it does really well.
Yes.
If it's going to be a small character story, like be a small character story. If you're going to be a galaxy wide thing, be a galaxy wide thing. You kind of in Star Wars sometimes can't be both. Like I think we forget how
Mm-hmm.
intimate the original trilogy is. Because like the original trilogy, like, yeah, it's got the big galactic scale to it, but it really is like just following like 4 people. It's
Yeah.
following Han, Luke, Leia, and Vader.
Yes.
And there's like so much other stuff going on. We know because we've had so much media fill in so much other stuff that's going on. The prequel trilogy on the other end, like, didn't get as deep into characters, but it was really galaxy, wide. The sequel trilogy tried to do both, and that's one of its faults. Is it's like it kind of wanted to develop characters, kind of wanted to develop the galaxy, but didn't know which one it wanted to do more, and that was a knock on it. So I think this just needs to like choose your lane and choose it really well, and really stick with it. And I think that'll help it quite a bit, especially because like this is going to shape what the future of Star Wars movies looks like. There's talk out there that there is episodes 10, 11, and 12 being developed. I would not be surprised if that's in conversations of like, hey, if
Mm-hmm.
Starfighter doesn't do well, we're just going to stick with episodic movies. And I mean, I don't know. I love Rogue One. I love Solo. Like these one-off movies that we got, like Mando and Grogu is a whole different beast, but these one-off movies that we got have worked. They've been good. And so I really hope Starfighter does well for that reason, so that we can get that. Any other things you're looking forward to or think that we'll get out of D23?
Let me see. I'm trying to think. We've got.
Because I feel like we've got like the book announcements at San Diego, so like I don't feel like there's gonna be any major book announcements.
No, and I don't think that's usually D23's like type of thing.
Yeah.
We've gotten already not too long ago sort of like updates and things on games, but that also is, again, that's not like D20 is more like TV's movies.
Yeah.
I
and
think
Disney parks.
And parks, yes. I think probably, yeah, to the extent I think the focus is going to be around Ahsoka and Starfighter. I would be very surprised if we got some like newer thing that's like farther out, like a season 2 Maul Shadow Lord update or something like that, or something brand new.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be relatively. I think it's going to be contained to the 2 things that we know are coming in the next 8 to 10 months.
Yeah, and I feel like they want to just really deliver on those 2 things, or I hope they really just want to deliver on those 2 things and then go like, okay, now what's next? Instead of constantly having this like what's next mindset.
Yeah.
Because I what you said about Starfighter needing to do well really hit me. Where I'm like, yeah, it really does need to do well because the track record is not looking great right now, and I think it kind of makes sense that like Starfighter is going to determine what direction are they going to go with things. Are they going to do straight up sequel trilogy, like second sequel trilogy, and have Rey, Finn, and Poe come back? Are they going to do this new look at the galaxy through this lens of Starfighter and have that continue as a series, or are they going to do one-off movies? And I think we'll know a lot more about that when we do like our 2027 retrospective. And we've had that time to sit with the movie and everything like that. But it'll be interesting to look forward to as we move into the new year, because that's coming up soon. But speaking of coming up soon, let's talk about what's coming up right now, which is us talking about the Ninth Jedi. Visions is making a comeback, baby, and I gotta say, it's better than ever. I am so ready to talk about the Ninth Jedi, because I am not gonna cut any corners or pull any punches in saying this is my favorite thing that Star Wars Visions has done, full stop, by a lot.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I like it more than any of the shorts. I really, really enjoyed this. But of course, with our best in butts, we critique as well. And so I do have my critiques of the series. So if you guys are joining us for the first time for best in butts, what we do is we look at 2 things that we thought could have been done better, didn't work for us, thought were confusing, anything along that for lack of a better term, negative aspect of things. And then for our best, we look at 2 things that we thought worked really, really well and that we maybe want some more of. So Davor, let's go ahead and start with our butts. And we start with our least egregious to most egregious. And so I'm going to go ahead and let you start. And what is your butt number 2?
All right. So my 2 butts are kind of 2 sides of one coin, or you could even say that butt number 2 is kind of a symptom of butt number 1.
So you could say it's like left cheek, right cheek is what you're getting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
there
okay.
You go. That's a great way to think about it.
Keep it on theme.
Yes,
baby.
Exactly. My butt number 2 goes to the Kyber cannon.
Okay.
Yes, because we have a villain, here who unveils what? Yet another planet-killing superweapon in Star Wars. We got another space gun.
Space guns for life.
Yeah. So yeah, that was just that kind of it does do kind of like, you do get the kind of Vision spin on it of like like they can make the black hole kind of thing. So it starts in one spot and then it opens up in another part of the galaxy and continues, which is admittedly cool. But at the same time, I mean, I think it's teased, or it shows up even in the trailer for Ninth Jedi, and I saw it there and I was like, we're really gonna do the heroes have to stop the big gun from destroying planets thing again. And we did that. I mean, obviously, there's other things going on in the climax of it, but one part of the climax is, yes, our heroes have to destroy the big space
weapon.
gun. So yeah, that was a little bit. I was like, oh man, like okay, fine.
Yeah, I didn't put this on my list, but it would probably be number 3. Is not the Kyber cannon itself, but I thought the whole like breaking the Kyber cannon or the Kyber crystal by just hitting it really hard with the butt of your lightsaber was the worst possible answer they could have come up with.
You just got like a pickaxe, like
yeah, and like. And the one guy like hits it with the wrong side and it doesn't do anything, and he's like flips it around and hits it with the other side. I'm like, so you specifically have to hit it with the butt of a lightsaber? Okay,
that is, it was a little,
I kind of hate that a lot.
It's no shooting the proton torpedo into the 2-meter wide, hole or whatever.
And like. You had, in that moment, you had so many Jedi there that were like Jedi of a different creed, or not even a different creed, but like a different tone to them, if you will. And they could have like had them all meditate together to crack the crystal, or, all ignite their saber. And because their sabers are different, somehow it works that it goes through them. Just like literally anything. It was like the creators were like, well, we don't know what else to do, so let's just have them hit it really hard. It was so dumb. No redeemable qualities to how they broke it, but I didn't have as much of a problem with the canon itself. But I'll kind of touch on an issue I have that connects with it in my number 1. Okay. In the meantime, my number 2 is in a very much in a way that fits with the story. My number 2 here is a reflection, or maybe a refraction if you want to, of my number 2 best. Okay. I really didn't like the lack of explaining the silver lightsaber. I had problems with that. To me, it's one of the most important elements of the story, and yet we get no clear explanation of what it means, right? It's clear that this color represents something, but you're not really sure what, and which is weird because the other colors either already connect to Star Wars or get clear exposition, or it's pretty clear in the story why they turn that color, right? For example, the green lightsaber at the end, Kara's green lightsaber, you're like, oh, I haven't seen that before. This is her ascending to like a higher level of the Force, things like that. But then the silver lightsaber, you get this explanation that it's a state of nothingness.
Yeah.
But I don't see that really fitting with, like, it fits with Nawan, but it doesn't fit with Zima. Like, Zima, I don't think gets to a state of nothingness, or at least I don't feel like the story makes it clear that he gets to a state of nothingness or why he would get there. I thought, and I think this would have worked better, when we get the scene with Zima killing his master who had turned to the dark side, I thought maybe that was it turning white, and he had been redeeming the crystal, right, which we've gotten in Star Wars lore. And I was like, oh, that's really cool, like twist on it, using it in visions, and with like how much they were talking about the lightsabers having meaning and stuff. And then it was silver, it turns out, and it really didn't get a good explanation. That was really frustrating to me. I wanted them to be very blatant in their explanation. Not because like of a lack of media literacy, I don't think, but just because it felt like it was so critical to the story that you were telling that I didn't want you to leave it up to interpretation when the other lightsaber colors were not left up to interpretation.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I do think that, that was one of those things where, they sort of left it to the viewers to kind of connect the thematic dots. Mm-hmm. But you are right that, especially because like we haven't really seen that kind of a lightsaber before in Star Wars. It's not a conventional color, right? It's not like a red, which has a very obvious connotation. It's not like the blue greens of the Jedi or things like that. It is very much like specific to this story.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I think like in that context, if you are telling this sort of thematic story about these sabers change color based on like they're essentially like mood rings,
Yeah,
like
really, like
yeah,
literally by your heart, like
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah, by your heart, then yes, like I think you do kind of need to maybe flesh out the silver a
Mhm.
little bit more.
Yeah, especially when the two characters that wield it in Nawan and Zima are so like different. Like they're connected to each other,
Hmm.
but they're different in how they move, right? And so
Yeah.
it makes it hard to like find the connection of why their heart is the same because it's made very clear that the lightsaber colors are a reflection of the user's heart. So like that's just straight up said. So I'm like, what did their heart have in common? Maybe you have that like that ending part, which is not on my list, but we can talk about it. I liked the ending of like you not knowing what color
Hmm.
Nawan's
Yeah.
lightsaber turned, right? I love a good like cliffhanger ending that like leaves you to kind of come up with your own conclusion about a character. Um, so maybe there was something there of like everybody gets to decide what Nawan's heart was, but I just don't feel like that fits with the rest of the story with regards to the silver lightsaber. So I just had issues with that aspect of it, and I just didn't think it worked as well as they needed it to for it to be a part of a story like this that did on so many levels work really well.
Yeah. No, I
So
definitely see your point there.
So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and go to our number ones and get the poodoo out of the way because we got a lot of good stuff to talk about with Visions. So, what's your number one thing that you didn't like about Visions?
Yeah, so as you talked about, and what we're going to talk about in the top half when we get to our bests, I think there's a lot that this does really well, and I think it introduces some kind of compelling ideas and things that make you think. And I think it's sort of well executed in terms of like the story and the visuals and all of that. I don't think, however, it's especially bold, and
Mm,
boldness is part of what I come to Star Wars Visions for. Like
yep.
we've had this as a sort of recurring conversation when we talk about Visions, either when there's some piece of Visions media that we're reviewing, or we've just kind of talked about it as like a, state of Star Wars, what's out there. That like part of the sort of conceit of Visions and why I love it and why I think it's been a success, but then also can sometimes be polarizing in terms of how people go with in what direction people go is that it does have like there is this sort of quality of like you know you're inviting these creators, these studios in, and then you're just kind of dumping the Lego blocks out of the bucket and you're like, go
Yeah.
build, like make something, go wild. And I think, you and I had sort of talked about this a little bit on the last episode when we were looking ahead to Ninth Jedi. And I was talking about how that it not being entirely surprising that they went with this one to give the 8-episode miniseries treatment, because if you line up all the Vision shorts on a continuum of like close to kind of Star Wars as we know it to like all the way like who like you're pushing the boundaries of what we know as Star Wars. Ninth Jedi is closer on the first end of
Yeah.
like this is much more like Star Wars stories that could be told in a canon animated show or even in a live action context, but then we suffuse it with sort of classical sort of anime twist. And so I sort of felt that in the context of this, where again I think it does do some kind of some bold, interesting stuff, and I'll talk about that when I get to my best too. But then at the same time, it did feel in a lot of ways like it had, standard Star Wars beats. And so, I talked about the sort of like the two sides of the coin, like the Kyber canon is like one of the, I think, most obvious examples for me, where it's like, I think that was an instance. I think that's an obvious instance where like, with the sort of creative latitude that you have in Visions, I think that could have been an opportunity where they could have created a kind of threat that you couldn't get in a canon story. Like you could have really
Yeah.
gone out there and done something really wild that you can only get in Star Wars because you have the kind of latitude that creators and Visions do. But then instead they just went with, what if a different iteration on the Death Star's Star Killer the Star Destroyers, but like this version. So yeah, that's my number one. But like I was missing some of that, like, wow, I've never seen this before, like holy heck kind of elements that I get from a lot of it, that you even kind of get from the very first Ninth Jedi short a little bit, when you get the sort of like twist of, oh, you think it's these Jedi going after the Sith, but it's actually these Sith going after the one. Even something like that, which isn't necessarily like a brand new element, but it is a kind of twist on the, it's taking the
Yeah, it
story
was
and
unexpected.
turning it upside down. Even that element is like kind of missing in the miniseries. So yeah, I would say if I had a big critique, it's that.
And I would say I 100% agree with everything you said, and that's my number one also. Like, you hit everything spot on. I to just add on to that, like, I like the, I love, in fact, that it's grounded in the Star Wars that we already know. Like, I love the Sith Jedi dynamic being something that we understand. I like having a character outside of that dynamic, because we've understood that in current Star Wars. Like, one of my big gripes with Ronin, for example, and that whole thing, is that it takes the same words but gives them completely new meanings with regards to Jedi, Sith, Empire, Rebellion, all of that stuff. Like, it doesn't just turn it on its head and do something new with it. It just changes the definition completely, right? But this, like, it leans on that, right? You've got the everyman against the evil empire is like literally the Star Wars trope. The Kyber cannon, super weapon being part of that. You have Kara, who is an apprentice who loses her master, which is very similar to Luke in a lot of regards. And it was a very safe story for a story that has a lot to say. And to some extent, I get it. One, because it's like, it's the first Visions Presents to come out. Like, let's make sure like people are actually going to buy this. But I do think it was somewhat of an intentional choice in terms of, or with regard to, like, they were more focused on the themes they were conveying than the plot. And so I think that they have a familiar plot instead of tropes to serve the overall story, because they were trying to get across certain themes. And that in and of itself is very Star Wars. And like, I think one of the elements of Star Wars you have to like have to make it feel like Star Wars, to me anyways. So I appreciated that, but I do think they could have taken some risks, or had a big twist or something like that. I mean, even kind of the big twist that they had was like Zima actually being alive, and even that's like such a trope at this point. Like, nobody dies. Looking at you, Rise of Skywalker. But yeah, it didn't feel like it took the risks that it had the latitude to, or you would think a Visions Presents story would have the latitude to, and that was a little bit disappointing for sure.
Yeah, I do sort of see your point that probably, because it was the first of its kind, maybe then, they did kind of hew to a much more sort of grounded, conventional Star Wars story. And maybe if they do these in the future, we will get ones that kind of break the mold a little bit more. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know that we have, and I had it in my brain that they said they were going to do one of these based on the Duel, but then I was trying to like Google and I can't find anything. So I'm like, did I just like Berenstain Bears this? Like, I just made this up. So I don't know.
I did hear a rumor there that was happening. Maybe it was on social media somewhere.
Okay,
and it was just made up. Maybe it was one of those like things that people are like, a source is telling me, and the source is like their brother's dentist or whatever. But yeah, I do think, because they do seem to have a fascination with that particular story, it getting a sequel, it getting a book, all of those things, that I do think that would be the next one they would make. But honestly, like, I would love more Ninth Jedi. Like, as much as I talked about wanting, kind of that cliffhanger ending and how much I like that. Like, I'd be cool if you showed me what color his lightsaber turned, or you had a whole season of building to that moment when he turns on the lightsaber. Sure, give me that. But we'll have to to see what happens there. Let's go ahead and move on to our good stuff, though, because I feel like just containing it to 2 things each is going to be kind of hard. So hopefully we don't have too much crossover here, so we can talk about more stuff. But go ahead with your number 2.
All right, so we touched on it a little bit actually within the butts when we were having the conversation about the lightsabers, in particular the silver lightsaber. But I think my number 2 best, and it's like I think the one thing that like got me the most like thinking coming out of this is this idea around nothingness. I think this is a really interesting idea that in some ways that like they sort of flesh out in this miniseries and sort of don't in terms of like what exactly that means. There's a decent amount of like showing versus telling that they do in terms of explaining what that means. But I think this is a really interesting idea, and I think it's something like, again, to get to the sort of like different, you know, the ways that it's a little bit kind of pushing against the borders of what we think of Star Wars. Like, I think that this is an interesting thing that they do with the antagonist Nawam, in the sense of like, you know, there's a couple routes you could go with them. One is you could just do a very classic Star Wars dark side villain. Like you could have done that. You could have done Sith or some kind of successor Sith thing, and they don't do that. Then the number 2 route that you could go after that is some kind of like grayish thing where it's like, oh, I'm using the light and the dark and what have, you know, like all of that. And instead they pick a 3rd route, which is this idea of like sort of just relinquishing both.
Yeah.
You know, like relinquishing the light and the dark. I think like it's really interesting to have the villain there telling Kara that like, oh, you need to like, you're being too emotional, you need to get rid of your emotions. You think that's such an inversion of like Palpatine in the throne room being like, use your aggressive feelings, boy, let the hate flow through you. And like Nawam is like 180, the total opposite of that, saying like, no, like you're leaning too much into your feelings and it's throwing you off. You need to just kind of let go of it all. And so I think that is really interesting. And I mean, it also ties into, I think, like one of my favorite maybe my favorite sequence in the miniseries, and it is when Kara is fighting the like the bounty hunter guys. Or I think they're called Inquisitors.
I think they're called Jedi Hunters.
Jedi Hunters or something like that. Yeah. But that whole sequence when she's kind of in the smoke and she's like trying to dodge like the shots or whatever, and she's like getting in her head and whatnot, and then she actually like does the thing where she lets go, and then she can kind of like actually anticipate where the blasts are coming from. So I think that whole notion is really compelling there.
For sure. Yeah.
That I do think that they then I think usefully and helpfully in terms of, again, kind of like bringing us back into the Star Wars of it all, they do kind of complicate by the end, because then there's the idea of like now one sort of presents himself and the way that he's been guiding living his life as this like ostensibly as sort of like a detachment, you know, freeing himself from the light and the dark. But then there's that sort of moment where it's like, oh, like what has that actually led you to? And then it's the lightsaber turns red, right? It's like the like, yeah, you can try to like free yourself from the binary, but in doing so you do end up doing fairly monstrous things.
Yeah, I like that as an idea. I thought it was a little bit of a commentary on the Jedi of the prequels, and their detachment from emotion and what it led them to, with the obviously not like turning them, you know, to the dark side, but it did lead to their fall, that disconnection with their emotion, which to me is what a state of nothingness is that disconnection with your emotions. So I felt like sure, I complained about the silver lightsaber like not being explained and that not being explored more, and that's kind of why, like, I thought it was a really interesting concept, the state of nothingness, and they didn't really do a lot with it, where I felt like it was one of the most important elements of the story, and one of the most unique elements of the story. And so to not explore that more was something that kind of bothered me, because you're 100% spot on. This was a great element of the story, and really, if we get more Ninth Jedi stuff, one of the things that I most want them to pick up on, you know, even if it's like Zima training Nawan out of that, you know, and showing him why it's wrong, or maybe Visions is like redefining nothingness in Star Wars and what it could look like. Like whichever direction they go with it, I'd love to get more of that stuff. I think it would be really, really.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's a really interesting concept, and as as I talked about, like it's a different take on like a villain and their motivations from what we've seen in other cases. Because
For sure.
we do get either the classically dark side villain, or we get this sort of like I'm somewhere in the middle or what have you.
Yeah, or like they could have easily gone and it would have made a lot of sense to go more of a Kylo Ren type villain of like this conflicted character,
Yeah.
you know? And I really liked how we had a villain who was not your classically mustache twirling like evil kind of villain, but who had a sense of conviction
Yes.
about what he believed in, and it's so important for your villains not to believe that they are wrong, right? Villain can't, shouldn't believe they're evil, but it's particularly powerful when you have a villain who you kind of agree with a little bit and it makes you uncomfortable that you agree with them, right? Think like Thanos, right? Like there's a little part of people where they're like, that's like, well, Thanos wasn't totally wrong about the fact that there's not enough resources for the amount of people that we have. He was just kind of wrong about killing, half of all living creatures, but like, that kind of thing, right? Where it goes like, I don't know what I would do if I had that kind of power. And I think that we got that kind of villain here where it was like, I kind of get what he's saying about, emotions are hard to handle and sometimes they can be overwhelming and sometimes you don't understand things. And like having a state where you're disconnected from all of that does seem like a good answer. It makes it relatable in a way that I think pushes you to think about the story a lot. And then this was an aspect that definitely got me thinking.
Yeah, definitely. Me too.
So something else that got me thinking, though, I kind of teased this a little bit earlier. My number 2 is I loved the lightsaber mythology in this show.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, small gripe with the silver saber, but other than that, like, I love everything that this story does with the lightsaber mythology and what it says about being a Jedi. I even I want to clarify and say, like, I like that the silver lightsaber is a part of the story. I didn't have a problem with that aspect. I, just didn't like the way that they handled it. But the color dynamic beyond that is so easy to understand. And then you get that moment when Kara's lightsaber turns green. And I don't know about you, but that was the first time I went, oh crap, they haven't had a green saber in the show yet.
Yeah.
I
don't think I clocked that either. Yeah.
You're just so used to, there's blue sabers, so there must be green sabers, right?
Yeah.
And so when you stop and you think and you go, oh, wow, you've only seen blue and now hers is green, so that means this, makes that really, really powerful moment. And really brings Kara's story to fruition in a really beautiful way, which ironically, like with me having named the second of the Ninth Jedi shorts as my favorite of season 2 or season 3 of Visions. Kara was one of my least favorite characters in Visions. Like I just didn't really connect with her. I connected with her hardcore during this show. I thought she was just so well fleshed out. And then to get this moment with the green lightsaber, I thought was extremely, extremely powerful. So just the idea of using this visual symbol to convey the heart of the story, I think makes the story feel very grounded and real. Makes it very easy to understand where you kind of know who you can and can't trust. When you have the Jedi Hunter that, turn or joins Kara, like he doesn't actually like turn to the light. Like it's not a redemption thing. It's like, I guess I work for you now. Like it's a life debt kind of thing. Yeah. But then his lightsaber turns on and is like, oh, he's got a good heart. I know I can trust him. Right. That kind of aspect. Naon's lightsaber changing to the red at the moment. Like all of those things just really, really worked for me, and was one of the most powerful ways I've seen both color theory and also just the lightsaber and the ability for it to change colors used in a Star Wars story. It was, I don't know if it was as impactful, but it's definitely on the level of Ahsoka turning her lightsaber blades white in the Ahsoka novel, where you just were like, oh crap, I didn't even know something like this was possible. I thought that while they didn't do anything wild with it, I thought they did kind of push the boundaries a little bit in regards to letting this tell a deeper story with the color of the lightsaber, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, me too. Like I love the way that, yeah, as you said, like it is a piece of visual storytelling. It's a way that they're doing sort of showing rather than telling.
Mm-hmm.
Like another moment that we haven't brought up yet that I really love. It is in, I think it's somewhere in the middle when she's like with the village of like the duck people.
Yeah.
Um and she goes up and she destroys the ship and all of that, and like brings it down and like destroys all of them, and then she kind of looks over and sees that her saber is turned red.
Oh, yes, such a moment, dude.
Yeah, and it's like it's such a striking visual, but then it's also like, again, to the, like the show don't tell, like it is like it's going to that sort of like the classic sort of Star Wars theme about like the road to hell being paved with good intentions.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I loved that moment. And I kind of clocked that it was probably going to happen. Um but I love that they didn't do the easy thing and have it turn red when she was doing the act.
Yeah.
I really liked that they had it turn red when the act was over. Like it
Yeah.
had sat with her, and that's what really turned her heart. That I thought was really, really powerful and impactful.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to our number ones, and I'll let you take it away.
All right, so my number one, my favorite thing that this series does, the best thing about it, the thing that I've kind of been waiting for a Star Wars story to do, and of course it would do it in Visions, in a place where you have that little bit more of a, like, you can just sort of build and do your own thing and push the boundaries, is the idea of anybody can be a Jedi. I love
Mm,
when they did that. It's great the first time that they do it, when they're with the miners, and Juro gives the lightsaber to like the head, like the main miner guy who's like,
Kwani, I
yeah,
think.
yeah, I don't know anybody's names except like the main.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, like he offers him to like to take the saber, and he's like, well, I don't have the Force, I'm not strong with it, but he's like, no, but you're still a Jedi by virtue of like the kind of person you are, and like your values
Mm-hmm.
and what you're willing to fight for. And so he takes the saber, and then you talk about the other moment where the Jedi hunter turns and starts working for Kara, and then like he gets the lightsaber, and then there's like the other people who end up making up like the Nine Jedi, like in sort of the council that I don't remember like all of their names, but like in the final battle, like they all get their own lightsabers, and
Yeah.
then they're there at the end. I think this is great because, again, like this is something I've been waiting on. I had hoped, this is what I hoped when we were watching season 1 of Ahsoka, that they were going to do with Sabine. I thought that they were going to like
Mm,
lean into this idea of like, oh, it's like it's not just about like ability or particular strength in the Force. It's like your willingness to like go on this journey and abide by a certain set of values and follow a certain path. But then they made Sabine Force sensitive. Like they kind of stuck to the mold. But I love that this broke that mold and said that, like, yeah, you don't need these kind of special powers to be considered part of the Jedi, but it's about like who you are.
yeah. That perfectly sums up my number one as well. Um, Literally, I wrote, we finally got a perfect portrayal of what a Jedi should be.
Yeah.
This story is really not interested in a Jedi skill or doctrine. It's much more interested in what a Jedi's heart is. I think it still cares about things like hope and temptation and friendship and mentorship and the meaning of being a Jedi, all of those things, right? Choosing light over dark. But it poses something that makes it better for the next generation, and it removes the historical baggage surrounding those ideas and makes them pure again. And I really found that extremely powerful. And that being a Jedi is almost something you pass on to someone when you recognize it in them. When Kara, gives the lightsaber to others, it is her going, welcoming them into the fold. I mean, it was everything I've been wanting and screaming about and yelling into this microphone for 8-9 years, however long we've been doing this now, about like with what a Jedi should be. Absolute, as the kids say, absolute cinema. Just no notes. Absolutely loved it. And then also to get that idea of you pass this on to someone else when you see it in them, through giving them a lightsaber, made the lightsabers feel earned. And then also at the end made Zima giving the lightsaber to Nawan feel earned, and feel like it meant something. And it wasn't just like, hey, I'm giving you a second chance. It was, I see something in you. I see your heart. I see, that you're to counteract what he'd been talking about the whole series, like to say, I don't see nothingness in you. I see something of the light in you. It was so powerful on so many levels, and it really hit home for me. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this series since it came out, honestly, and really, I would love more exploration of this, because I feel like those ideas were so perfectly laid out here, and also made really simple and obvious while also being really meaningful. Which I think is what Star Wars does really well. Star Wars doesn't hide its themes. Star Wars doesn't, it kind of hits you over the head with it, but it also makes it complicated, makes it messy, at the same time poses a lot of questions. We talk about how, sometimes when you get an answer in Star Wars, you get more questions after that. This story still does that, I think, but it's very clear about what a Jedi is. And the fact that it doesn't have to do with going to a temple or following some doctrine or even having any special abilities, I thought was possibly the best thing, that they've done with the Force since like Empire Strikes Back, like honestly, just with how mystical it makes being a Jedi again, really, really worked well.
Yeah. It is, at least in recent years, like probably the boldest vision of like what the Jedi Order could be and could look like. That is breaking from sort of what came before, and really does sort of like, like get you to thinking about like, when you think about like the actual canon story and what we've gotten in the Skywalker Saga, like I think the question, that everybody is, or a lot of people probably left with once you get to the end of episode 9 and you've got Rey, and then that she's going to be not continuing on. It's like, well, okay, like what really is going to break the cycle, right? Like, how do we get to a point where it's not like, you have the Jedi, and then you have all the stuff in the prequels and Anakin and all of that, and then it falls apart, and then Luke comes up, and then he tries to rebuild, but then it falls apart. And so, like, okay, what's the thing? What's the vision? Like, what does it look like such that it's not going to be Rey's building it up and then it collapses and somebody else has got to build it back up? And I think like this, like this series, Ninth Jedi, is the closest so far that anyone has like gone to actually giving an answer to what that looks like.
For sure, 100%, and what it should look like, honestly. Like, I think if we can be as definitive, easy for me to say, as that, like, I think this is the direction they need to go with the Jedi. Is, sure, you can have Force powers, and then you can be a certain kind of Jedi, but maybe if you don't have Force powers, but you have the heart for it, the heart of service, the heart of caring for others, the Heart of Hope, you can be a different kind of Jedi, and just to get those different iterations. And I really love that they didn't fall to the temptation of like when the miners are there, being like, "You're all Jedi," like
Yeah.
that very like crowd sourced kind of thing. That it was still an intimate and meaningful personal journey that somebody has to go on to get there. Was a really good choice. So, we talked earlier about how they kind of like took the easiest route in, the Ninth Jedi with regards to making it feel like other Star Wars stories. This was definitely the boldest thing that they did, and probably, actually, I mean, it's our number one. So I think we can say definitively for us, the most important and impactful thing that they did. So really loved that. Really want to see some more Ninth Jedi. Would you prefer more Ninth Jedi stories or more other Visions stories if they continue on this Visions Presents miniseries initiative?
I think maybe news like or like new stories. That is to say, like, yeah, obviously I do want them to do future volumes where you do like other creators, but then also like if you're gonna do more Visions Presents, right? Like,
yeah,
I would like to see them pick up the threads of other stories. Not that, and not because it's like I say there's like a knock against Ninth Jedi, because again, I did enjoy this mini series, and like there are, again, as classic Star Wars stories, there's always the little crumb of like what's the next story that you could tell. There's always the sort of like looking ahead to the next adventure, even if the next adventure never gets really told. You're like the stories are almost always leave you on that note. But I think there's, even in just like the 3 volumes that we've gotten, I think there's so many stories that we get in there and so many different kinds of stories that I think if they're going to do more Visions Presents, I would like to see other creators get to take a crack, just because I think there are so many there's so many unique visions, pun intended,
see what you did there.
that we have gotten, that I would like especially this kind of longer form, not to just be like limited to a few storytellers or a few stories.
For sure. So basically what you're saying is we need a mini series of the twins.
That would be a good one. That would be a crazy one.
That feels like the next natural one to me. But of course,
I think that one could be a lot of fun.
It would be a lot of fun. That one or Sith, I think, would be a really good one to pick up on. There's certain ones, like, I know this might be something you agree with, or it might be blasphemy to you. I don't want more Screecher's Reach, because it finishes so perfectly. Like, leave that in its little box.
No, I 100% respect that and do like I think there is something to be said for like getting to like look through the peephole, like the keyhole into like a world or a story, and like that's it. The door never opens and you don't get any more. You just get the little morsel, and you just have to kind of sit and think about that and speculate. But no one's going to step in to tell you, okay, here's chapter 2 of that story.
Yeah, and like bring those creators back for sure. Stuff like that, like the animation style was good, all of that stuff. But you're 100% right. There's something to that. That I call it the scarcity effect, of things.
100%.
And that I think is really powerful. But I guess we'll find out. You guys know we'll be here to talk about it if they decide to do more of this. It doesn't feel like Visions is done in any way, shape, or form. Hopefully we get more Visions Presents stories, because I did enjoy getting to go to that different version of the galaxy far, far away for like a longer span of time than we get in the Vision shorts. But Volume 4 is probably coming. I don't know if we've got that officially announced. I don't think they've officially said that, but it does seem like Lucasfilm is really in love with this Visions project. It's working for them in international markets too. So I don't feel like Visions is going away, and we'll be here to talk about it on the Clashing Sabers network as it happens. So make sure, whether you are watching us over on TikTok, Instagram, or on our Facebook group, Star Wars Clashing Sabers, that you subscribe to the feed so that you can get all of our content. We've got some great projects coming up, some big things happening We, of course, will go back to our series covering the chapters of the book that I'm publishing this holiday season to explore some of those deeper themes of Star Wars. There's just a lot of good stuff that you guys are going to want to be a part of. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you're listening now, wherever you're watching now. And if you're watching on social media, go over to your podcatcher of choice and don't just subscribe. You liked the clip, listen to an episode, give us a rating and review. Help other people find us, and that'll be really, really helpful. Davor, if other people want to find you, where can they find you at?
All right. If you want to find me on social media, I'm over on Blue Sky at Demondum. You can also listen to me as a co-host on Space Swifties, a Star Wars and Taylor Swift podcast that hosts my wife, the one and only Meg Dowell.
Dude, if they do another Visions, like, and they need to like jump from like skip the whole like Visions Volume 4, do a whole another Visions Presents, right? You have the creators of the twins doing a story about Batchy.
Hi ho.
It'd be so wild, dude. Just like everybody walking around slapping each other's butt.
Yes. And there's